Yogi Roth, welcome to the Mindset of Vantage podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. I have a lot of questions for you, a lot of different topics that I want to dive into. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. You got a Christmas tree in the background. You got these fancy lights. I mean, who? I'm gonna give you all the credit for the design for that space that you're in. I love it, man. Congratulations on your success. I've been tracking a lot of your stuff. Always come away as a better person, and glad we were able to make this work. And I'm looking forward to the conversation, man.
Thanks, man. For the last 20 years, you've been working with some of the most elite athletes, elite coaches, and elite teams in the world. And we're going to get to all that fun stuff. But before that, you were a walk-on wide receiver trying to prove yourself at Pitt. I'm so curious to start this conversation. If you could go back to that version of you, what was the biggest lesson or the biggest story that you took from that part of your life?
Well, I think there's two of them, and you're hitting me at a perfect time because I'm about to go do an event with a bunch of college administrators in Florida and talk about a version of this. And I can still see myself and my dad driving from Pennsylvania through Ohio out to Indiana to Notre Dame's campus in the summer of '99 and being like, I am gonna play at Notre Dame. And they had different plans. Urban Meyer was like, "You're not actually going to play here." He was the receiver coach at the time, and I was like, "Okay." But that moment cemented that I could play at that level, and that's when I made the decision, like, "Oh, I'm going to go to whatever team plays Notre Dame the most." It happened to be Pitt, and they let me walk on. And I think I say all that because I grew up in a town of 2,500 people with no stoplights, and there wasn't a lot of that coming out of where I grew up. Me also, there wasn't a lot of, yeah, I believe that you can go do that. My parents didn't have the experience. They weren't Division I athletes. The football community wasn't necessarily fired up for me to go do this. It was more like, well, you can go to like a 1AA school or a D2 school. You can go play, go be an All-American, go kill it, catch 100 balls. And I was like, no, I'm going to play in front of 80,000 on ESPN or whatever the platform was rocking at the time. And I just had this inner belief in me, which allowed me to get there. And I think it was the driver. It was a huge driver for me, sadly, that I was trying to probably prove other people wrong. And I say it now, like if you tracked any of my social, when a quarterback pops up and he's like, proving the haters wrong, proving the haters wrong, I constantly chime in, go prove yourself right. And so what I would say to myself back then is, yes, you played in your second game as a freshman. Yes, you started, you earned a scholarship, like you did the walk-on story. But Yogi, you did not have a lot of joy when you competed because it was such a fight, man. It was like I am fighting for my life, and that is the life of a walk-on. Like your love for the game is always tested, always challenged because you got to go work out with this different group. At the time, you didn't get to eat with the team. Your jersey was like, I was in locker 106. I wore 82. Like, so all of those things like can make it a challenge, but your purity for the craft is tested. And mine was insane. I love football. Like it's changed my life. It continues to change my life. And I think for me, I wish I had more fun while I was doing it versus being in the fight the whole time.
I want to go back. There's a line in there that I love. So, what you're talking about is proving others wrong versus proving yourself right. Can we double
Yeah.
click on that?
Happy triple, quadruple, click on it 100 times. I think it's the truth. I think, if you were in my office here in my vision board, it says words and then an arrow to pictures, to an arrow to emotions, to an arrow of beliefs. So the words would be, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, right? The pictures would be their faces, right? The emotions would be, it might be anger, it might be, I'd be driven. And then the belief would be like, nobody believes in me versus I believe in me. Let's ride. Like I love nothing more to this day as a 43-year-old father of two than having a catch with my kids. Like that's what the craft of receiver is. You're just having a catch all the time. So to me, I wish somebody told me that, maybe recognize that in me. And in the hyper alpha culture of college football 20 years ago, and you could argue today with all the elements in college football, like it is just cutthroat. And that is a truth, and that's cool. But you can have fun in the cutthroat business of college football. And I wish I did, man. I wish I did. I was up at, I'm not trying to like say I worked so hard, but like I had to have a job. So I was a bouncer at a club. I'd leave at 2 a.m. I'd work out at 3 a.m. by myself, running routes in the dimly lit fields of Duquesne University. Then I'd be up at 6 for another workout. And then I'd be back at 2 o'clock for another workout and a film set. Like it was just maniacal because I loved it and I felt like I had to do it to gain an inch. All things are true. In addition to that, I could have done it with a probably more joy in my heart, in my route, in my reception, in my film study, versus like I'm about to go keep my edge. I'm going to gain another edge. And I think both of them can be true. Like I love that phrase. Like two things can be true. Like I had to fight my ass off to compete, to beat out scholarship guys every year and maintain a scholarship and play. And I could have done it having a little bit more fun. And I think that was something that I just buried deep inside myself. And it wasn't until years later that I recognized that walking on at football led me to sitting on a plane next to my wife because I came home from a practice at Stanford. And I'm not at Stanford if I don't walk on at Pitt. I'm not now a father of two and the, happiest guy I know if I don't take that risk. So I think there's truth to all of it. But for me, I just urge young athletes, man, like we're in this era where they just keep following other people and they want to head top somebody, want to talk shit to somebody. And really what they're doing is like they're not treating themselves well. And I see that as a youth coach. I see that as a parent. I see that as a broadcaster. And I obviously live that experience as well.
Sometimes it comes down to the very simple inside your control and outside your control, Yogi. So when we're trying to prove other people wrong, it's everything that's outside of our control. I can't control anybody else, whether it's haters or somebody that's, the keyboard warrior, whatever you want to call them. I can't control them. So even if I do prove them wrong, we miss some sense of fulfillment inside. And so what I'm kind of hearing from you is that when we choose to prove ourselves right, we can control that a little bit more. So it's a little bit more of a safer bet, if you will.
Well, the other one, the former is fleeting. Tom Brady is the one story I know of a guy who had this massive chip on his shoulder and achieved dramatic success and was driven by being a late round draft pick, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, Tom, I'm sure he's a phenomenal human being. I mean, he's the greatest of all time and everything he does seems to turn into gold. But my point is that for every one of him, there are millions of others that have told themselves to be driven by this chip. The chip is bigger and bigger and bigger. And like, you're right, maybe you do achieve. And then you sit in that dopamine high for a couple days, a couple hours, a couple Saturdays, a couple Sundays, like a couple seasons, but really like it just falls apart. Like it has no meaning. I've been destroyed on social media and celebrated on social media. And as Chip Kelly wrote in a book I wrote called 5-Star QB, which is my favorite quote from the book, he said, quote, praise and blame are all the same. And I loved hearing that because there's
What
a
does that
truth
mean to
to
you?
that.
Yeah, what does that mean? Break that down.
Well, okay, you got the greatest podcast going, man. Yeah, cool. You got the worst podcast on air. You should shut it down. Cool. Like, does it matter? Like, not really. And there's old cliches that are called cliches for a reason because they've lasted through the test of time. And one is what you referenced in the opening of the question, which is like, what are your controllables? Like control what you can control. Like it's as old as time, and you're going to hear every coach say it come training camp in August in all fall sports. We can control what we can, and like it's a truth. You can move with the wind if you want. You should run the ball more. Offensive coordinators like, the fans think we should run the ball more. I need to appease them to run the ball more. Like, oh, like who cares? And I think there is a stoicism, a confidence, and also a really healthy regard that other people should have an opinion. And that's super cool. That's what allows sport to thrive. That's what allows your show to thrive. Like that's amazing. You're creating dialogue and people are having an opinion on it. But for you living it every day, if you blew with the wind and lived with the praise, seek the praise, were crushed by the blame, hated the blame, like you would never maximize you. That's an old Pete Carroll adage. Like our goal is to maximize our potential. Okay, how do we get to that point? Well, we got to clear out some of that clutter. And as I would say now, like we got to chase what matters. And I think I definitely wish I was taught that at a younger age, probably not with that same vernacular, but with that essence. I think it would have been massive for the growth of me as an athlete. And I'm hoping now to share that with young athletes where, or any young performer, like, hey man, praise and blame are all the same. Like, what do you love? How do you want to attack it? What's the discipline associated with it? Are you having a blast? Are you finding the joy? Are you connecting with people in real emotions, with real relationships? Or is it stuff that doesn't really at the end of the day really move the needle or truly matter to you? And that's a tough question, and it's a tough lane to navigate.
Yeah, and I would love to navigate it with you. So praise and blame are both the same. When I think about, the hard workers, the people that love the grind, I like this imagery or this, story outline of seeing somebody climb this ladder and they're climbing, 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 climbing. And they get to the top and they realize, oh man, I'm on the wrong building. But yet they climb so hard, like they're working so hard and their head is down, so far down because they're working so hard that they don't really realize the building that the ladder is leaning on. And I know this is a big point of reference that you talk a lot about too. So, what I'd love to dig in with you, because I think you're the perfect person to talk to, is how can young athletes, maybe not even young, how can athletes in general make sure that our ladder is on the right building? We have the work ethic. If you're listening to the show, you have work ethic. There's no question about it. You're going above and beyond to try to get better and attack the gap from where you are to where you want to be. But sometimes what can happen with hard chargers like you and me and some other people listening is that it's on the wrong building. How can we prevent that so we don't climb for 5, 10, 15 years, get to the top, Yogi, and go, damn, I'm on the wrong building?
Yeah, it's a fun question. I, look, I'm never going to pretend to be the expert. I'll give an opinion for sure, and people can take it and throw it in the ocean or ride on it. Doesn't matter to me. I'll say this. I think emotional intelligence is a phrase that I will teach to every quarterback that I'm ever around, every athlete I'm ever around, and hopefully our two sons will understand it, which is loosely defined as, do you have the capacity to understand and navigate your thoughts and the thoughts of others with empathy? So I'd start with that. Like, can you give yourself the Mel Robbins-esque, like a high five pat on the back to start your day? Like, because you're right. You're like, I gotta go, I gotta grind. Wake up, sun is up and I'm moving, right? It's a lion and the gazelle. It's that old poem. Like, okay, I get all that. Like grind mentality. That's what America is, you could argue, is fundamentally built upon. Other countries have a totally different lens on that, which we could debate on what's healthier or not. But point being, to answer your question, how do you know what you're, what building you're trying to scale is? I think you got to check. I think every so often it's important to zoom out, right? There's a guy who I consider a true mentor. I have two guys I say are on my board of life. They'd be great guests for you. One is a guy named Ken Black. One is a guy named Kevin Carroll. Ken Black ran innovation at Nike for 25 years. He's a true designer. Designed the Fab Five shorts at Michigan, designed the new NFL jerseys back in the day, 10 years ago, or whatever it was. Just elite designer. He'd always say the best artists have the ability to get up super close and paint that painting 3 inches from it, the canvas, and then step back 30 feet and have perspective on it. But they can do it within the art of making that piece, within that craft, within that timeline. I think it's important for all of us to do it. Like I look at my craft as a broadcaster, and every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm in this very chair and I'm grinding on this very screen, watching the nuances of college football. And then how funny is it on Saturday, I'm at the 50, 100, 200, 300 feet away from the action. Yeah, like I have no choice but to zoom out. They're little ants running around, and I've got to try to describe what they might be doing with some sort of detail. So I'm in the detail, I'm out of the detail. Same thing when we're on our ladder. Same thing. I mean, I was 19 years old. I was sitting next to Pete Carroll at the Chart House in Redondo Beach, California, and he goes, "What do you want to do in your life?" And I said, "I want to impact the world in a really cool way." I don't know why it came out of my mouth, but it came out exactly like that. And he looked at me and he said, "Okay, then go create value." And that's what I would say to anybody on the ladder now. Go create value. Don't worry about climbing the ladder of success. The ladder of success, rung by rung. Go create value. And when you do, you'll begin to leapfrog the competition. That's exactly what he told me. It's exactly how he phrased it. And I interpreted that as no matter what task I am given or where I might be in the proverbial ladder of success, can I create value and be the absolute best and maximize my absolute potential at stapling practice scripts, at coaching a drill in quarterback play, at what changing diapers when our kids were toddlers, like whatever it is, can you create value? In the professional sense, if you do that, when it's time to leave or get a promotion or you get another offer, the ladder you're on will be like, no, I need this. I need you to stay. Here's more money. Here's a longer contract. Here's a bigger platform. Like that will happen. And that's been proven, man. I've seen that my whole life. He told me that at 19. And that is my vision at every stop I've been at. Fox, ESPN, Pac-12 Network, Big Ten Network, you name it. Can I go create value? I'm not worried about other broadcasters, other hosts, other shows. I'm like, I just want to create value. And I know that when it comes, I'm ready for it. And I think that is what I would tell anybody. Take a little stock and create value. And don't be so hyper focused all the time on the next rung as you climb.
I think to continue that analogy, if you continue to give value, put other people first, when you climb that ladder, Yogi, we get to the top of the building, and guess what? There's gonna be a lot of people there with you. There's gonna be a lot of people that are waiting at the top to celebrate with you. If we climb that ladder and it's all about me, 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 and we're grinding for 20 years, and then we have this championship, we have this MVP, and then nobody's there at the top. I mean, is that what we really want? So I
Yeah.
think the way you climb the ladder is important too. My mentor told me as well this great idea of zoom in to see the process, zoom out to see the progress. So zoom in, see exactly what you do day to day, your research, your preparation, everything, but be able to zoom out. And I think a lot of hard chargers, high performers, they do a good job at zooming in because everything's right here. Do what's most important now, definitely. But how good are we at zooming out? Taking stock, making sure everything is in alignment, going the way we want to go, putting the ladder on the right building. Do you have a specific strategy that either you do or my listeners could do, parents, coaches, to help them just step back for a second and maybe look at what matters most? Am I doing the right thing I need to be doing? Is there a strategy that you like to give out?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I think there's one that might make you laugh, but like, especially those of us that have kids that are listening or watching your show now, like, there's moments where you just hear their pitter patter in the morning, right? Like, these moments where you have no choice but to be connected to the present moment, right? It could be because your kid's in a swimming pool and you're locked on them because you wanted to be careful. It could be a moment where they're just talking to themselves in the corner of their room, looking at a book or talking to a stuffed animal. Like, those moments, I think, naturally come about. And when they happen, they force us to click right into the present moment, which I think is really cool. The way that I would explain my process and how I do it is really three steps. So, as I referenced, I think the best in the world, and I've done this research in my 20 years around high achievers, high performers, I think the best in class do one thing and one thing only. They chase what matters. So, what does that mean? They have clarity around the thing that matters most. So, if you ask yourself as you're watching this, what matters most to me? And you will probably say your family or your job or a friend or a relationship. Cool, you have clarity. The next part is, are you confident when you say it? Like, if you say family, are you really doing it? If you say friend, are you really doing it? If you say job, are you really doing it? Like, are you confident? No wrong answer. I tell this to athletes all the time. What do you want as a quarterback? What's clarity? If clarity is make the most money in NIL because you can get paid in college football now, cool. Be confident when you own it. If it's playing early, cool. Whatever it is, clarity, confidence, and then the hardest part is discipline. And the discipline is not what we've done as athletes at 5 a.m. and work out or get a cold plunge and a sauna in. Like, that's not the discipline I'm talking about. I'm talking about making a non-negotiable decision with yourself to make sure that you're checking in, that you are chasing the thing that matters most. That is the discipline. It's not the daily grind, the daily work, the habits. That's a different style. I'm saying, like, do you have the willingness to make a non-negotiable decision? And I believe that we all do. Here's an example. If you're listening to this, or if you're doing it, man, and I was your team, and I was your physician, your family doctor, and I called you and said, hey, blood work came back. You're a type 2 diabetic. If you don't change how you eat and how you move, you're not going to see your kids graduate high school. I would bet within the next 6 hours, if not 6 seconds, you cut out processed carbs. You create time to walk a mile a day. Like, you would make a non-negotiable decision overnight to create a discipline around the thing that matters most to you. Because you stated it with clarity, you said you owned it, and now where's the discipline on it? And I have tested this theory out with teams. Coach, what's the building about here? With clarity. I was at the Raiders a couple weeks ago. It's all about the ball here. Cool. You confident in that? Yeah, because if you win the turnover battle, you win 98% of your games. Love it. What's the discipline? Well, every day we have a turnover drill. Like, that's like a simple example within a sports team. What is it within your own discipline, within your own life? And I found, as I researched, I looked at every interview, man, I did with any coach, any athlete. I got a stack of them over here to my right. Now, 19 years as a broadcaster, 4 years as a coach, 4 years as a player. I have documents on documents. And those three pillars are what came out of it. So yeah, I think there's a real process to that. And I love sharing it because I needed somebody to, like, have this conversation with to get to that. I couldn't see it. I was like, I have all these things and all these notes, and this coach said that, and that leader said that, and this elite athlete said this. And it was like, oh, let's find a little bit of like what's coming up, what's surfacing. And those three bullets did, and it's changed my life in a powerful way. And I figured it out 2 years ago.
Clarity creates confidence. I think clarity also creates connection. And not only connection with the team, but connection with yourself. As a mental performance coach, the first thing I do and a consultant when I work with a team or with an athlete is help them get to know themselves. I think a lot of traps out there is to try to get into the X's and O's or try to get into some of the things beyond our control or shove down visualization and all these other skills. They're great. They can be great. But the first thing, first and foremost, I'm a big Dr. Michael Gervais fan, as I know you are too. What's your first principle? What is your philosophy? Get clear on who you are. It seems like Coach Pete Carroll is somebody that maybe taught you this, and he's doing it at pretty much every stop that he's been at. I'd be curious to hear what were some of the lessons you learned from him when it comes to clarity.
I mean, so many. I mean, so many. I mean, I can remember a month before my wife and I got married, I flew up to see him in Seattle, and I thought we were just going to catch up on life. And he did an hour dissertation to me on how you got to compete as a husband. Yeah, like, and it was everything you'd imagine, right? It was like he was talking to his team before the Super Bowl. It was the same deal for me. I think this, and he writes about it in a book. I'm really grateful I got to co-author with him called Win Forever. Is at the core of him, it's you got to have a belief system. Like, what is it that you believe in? Like, truly, what do you believe in? What are your values? Then, once you figure out your values, like, what is the vision you have for your life? We're working our way up through this pyramid. Then ultimately, like, are you confident in that vision? Do you trust that vision? And he would say, and I agree, and I tell this to myself before every broadcast, confidence plus trust equals focus. And if you're confident in what you're stating you're about, if you really trust it, right? You trust the people around, the community that you've curated, then you have the ability to go focus on the vision that you just described. Then ultimately, at the peak of this thing, uh, he would say, you've earned the right to compete in the absence of fear. I would say, and Mike Gervais and I have had this conversation a bunch, is like, you've earned the right to compete freely. I didn't want to say the word fear
Mhm.
prior to a big moment in my life. So that's the top of it. I've earned the right to go compete freely. And I think those principles have allowed his teams to be the most connected to their pure self. You walk around the Raiders, you walk on the Seahawks, you walk on the SC when we were there. Everybody was their personality to the max within the confines of the organization. That's the discipline. You could be as fun, as loud, as curious, as creative as you want within the confines of the structure. If you get out of the structure, okay, we got issues. Let's talk about getting back in, or maybe you don't belong. And that's the discipline that I think is often lost when people talk about Pete Carroll and the success that he's had. He's curated it, and it's not for everybody. But if you can get comfortable with, like, I could be me here, I could be the best version of me here, and I got to be early, I got to be organized, I got to be disciplined, I got to be competitive, I have to be able to take hard truths. Like, all of those elements are part of it. But big picture, it's the middle of his book, man. The pyramid he created and we wrote about is something I repeat to myself prior to every broadcast, every interview, any high performance moment. And it gets me to a place where I'm really connected to where my feet are. And okay, take a deep breath and let's roll, man. You've earned the right. Let's go cut it loose. And I love that as a mantra and as a practice.
It's so cool, man. In your 20s, you got a chance to get a PhD in culture and competition and in really what I like to kind of call purpose-driven leadership, doing what we do on purpose with purpose. I'd love to hear another piece from Pete Carroll that you learned about in your 20s. I mean, bring us behind the curtain, man. What was something else that was still to this day kind of sticks with you when it comes to culture building and being a purpose-driven leader? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Oh my God, so much. It also, like, I have questions for you. Like, I love how you've talked about being a purpose-driven leader and coach, like from the content that I've read that you've curated. So I'd love to hear, like, how you got to that place. I'll answer your question on Pete, and I'll go to, like, the first, I guess, two things that come to mind. One is we lose to Texas in the greatest game you could argue college football history in the national title game. It's my first year. We win every game, and I'm thinking we're never going to lose again, ever. And we lose, and I sprint in the Rose Bowl from the booth down to the locker room because I was upstairs next to Lane Kiffin at the time. And he said, 19 seconds will never define you. It's 19 seconds will never
Wow.
define you. Like, this is a team of champions. And I think it's a really cool example. I say this as a dad and a head coach of a flag team. You know, like the loss won't define us. Like we led the league in high fives and fist bumps. I'm talking to 9 and 10-year-olds. At the time, he's talking to USC, and he's like, "You won two straight national titles. You just competed for a third. You went to four straight Rose Bowls. Like this moment is not going to define you. Like you're a champion. Don't let it." You know, Trent Dilfer said a phrase once that I love, and it was something of like, "Don't be a prisoner of the moment. Be a product of the process." We say that to Elite 11 every year because we dub one guy the best quarterback in the country in shorts and a t-shirt, and it's they want it, they dream of it. They always don't get it, especially the guys that come in hyped up like it isn't always the best guy. And we told that to Bryce Young because CJ Stroud won the MVP that year. Bryce lost it. Bryce was easily the number one ranked guy in the world for a couple of years. And I could see Trent talking to him and saying, "Don't be a prisoner of this moment. Like we just spent a week together. Be a product of this process." And I love that phrase. So I'd probably go there with the story for Pete. And then the other one that I just lean on all the time, and my colleagues would probably be annoyed by me because I say it so often, is reframing any challenge to be an opportunity to go compete. Hey, let's compete. So I'll take you inside like broadcasting. There's a screen that's a telestrator where you get to draw circles on if you watch a game. I'm obsessed with those screens. Obsessed with those screens. Like I'm drawing, if you watch my game, I'm constantly like a kid on Etch-a-Sketch, right? And trying to do it in a disciplined manner. Sometimes these screens are small. Sometimes they're beautiful. I called a game in the spring at Ohio State, and it was the greatest telestration screen I've ever seen in my 19-year career. And I called my boss, the Big Ten Network, and I said, is there a world where we can compete to get this screen on every broadcast this season with our crew? And I think it changes not only the way a message is delivered, but also is received versus, man, I don't really like some of the screens we use. Or I think we could have better screens. Like, and you're not saying it in a passive aggressive way. You're saying it in like, can we compete? If we don't, cool, but we competed. Can we compete to look at life a little differently? Can we compete in this room to see if our margins can shrink a little bit so our profit can grow? Can I compete to come home 10 minutes early so I can get that extra booking with my kid? Like, can we compete to do that? And Pete would say, hey, you're either competing or you're not. And he would say that our program is in a relentless pursuit of a competitive edge. And at first, that seems like a heavy thing. We're always competing around here, man. But as you sit in that culture, it's like, oh, should we wake up? Like, I'm competing to be a better dad and a husband. I'm competing to take care of myself. So that means on a Thursday night in the football season, I'm chilling. Doesn't mean I need to be at a 10 all the time. Like, are you competing to be aware of your thoughts all the time? Like, are you competing to be connected to your partner, your love? Like, it's a really cool word that once you get through the initial definition, which is to strive against, and you get to the Latin root of the word, which is to strive together, like it's an, I mean, it's so cliche, but it's an unlock. Like it really is in life. So that's one that I've carried with me. Heck, I was saying it yesterday, in a business call, like, hey, can we compete to do this a little bit harder? Can we compete to find a way to make this work and navigate? Can I compete to be better? Like I love that side of him. And just seeing him a couple weeks ago, that has not changed. Watching him run around the practice field.
And I like to, it's a healthy way of thinking, right? It's not competing against others. We go back to that first phrase, which I think is so powerful. Are we proving ourselves wrong? Or we proving ourselves right or proving others wrong? I think that there's some similar kind of connotations there. What I've learned, Yogi, from having these conversations, I'm doing this Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard series where I've talked to 10 Division I coaches all throughout the country in a variety of different sports about what it means to coach beyond the scoreboard. And what I've found is that the best coaches they make a transformational impact. What is a transformational impact? To me, in the college world, it's when the kids graduate in 5, 6, 7 years, they want to come back to your program, whether it's to be a volunteer coach or just say what's up and they want to introduce you to your kids. Or if every year your mailbox is full of wedding invites, you're a transformational coach. So that's just kind of the soft definition. The hard part about it is you don't know if you're a transformational coach until a few years down the line. In the moment, you really can only look at the transactional side. I know cliche, transactional, transformational, but that's what coaches are getting tripped up on, is because they're so transactional, because it's the only thing we can grade ourselves on, because it's right here, right now. So besides the point, what I've gathered from talking to these 10 amazing coaches over 200 years of coaching, kind of distilled into this ebook that I've created, was that it's hardest to coach beyond the scoreboard when we're so attached to the outcome, and so attached to the things we can't control, and so attached to win, loss, salary, fans, everything that's outside of the stadium. And so then I got to thinking, well, what's the strategy? What do we do? How do we get them to coach beyond the scoreboard? And it's quite simple. It's not asking them to lose focus. I still want you to have that maniacal, insane focus like you do on the outcome, but I just want you to recalibrate and shift it to the left about 3 millimeters. And what I want you to focus on instead is the process. I want you to be maniacal about the process. And there are tons of different ways to do this. I mean, Nick Saban kind of put it on the map a few decades ago about what it looks like. And there are so many different strategies. And I would love to hear from you, being around Pete Carroll and a ton of other coaches in the broadcast booth. What are some ways that you've seen some of the best coaches be process driven instead of outcome driven? I'm kind of gathering some more data to try to figure out what are some of the best doing, because it's great to say it. Sounds great, Yogi. How do I do it? What do you think is one way that you've seen it
Yeah.
at a high level?
I love that you asked this question. I have a podcast and newsletter called Why Option,
Yep, I'm
and
on it.
thank you. This season, you're gonna love it. We're gonna do 6 episodes or so on literally titled The Process, because we all have to live in a process as a parent, as a dad, as a coach, as a professional, what have you. And there's a variety of different ways to have a process. Like there's the Nick Saban way, there's the Kirby Smart way, there's the Pete Carroll way, there's the Dabo Sweeney way, there's the Ryan Day way. Like, and I think that's amazing. Right? There's a lot of different ways to find success. I want to say this to your first point of, do you know if it's transactional because they come on back? I'll say this to the coaches, and I believe in this with every bone in my body, is that oftentimes when we get older, and I see this in youth sports, coaches coach often the way they have been coached.
Yes.
So even if you have had a horrible experience and your coach was in your face, I've watched many coaches, I don't want to call them out, I've watched many coaches in the grill of players every practice, every period, and they would say, I need to create chaos so they can find peace on a game day. Cool. I'm not here to debate if that works. And I won a guy a national championship. I watched it in real time before the game. Also, don't subscribe to that, because now that player and or that third string player who's coaching his kid's 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old youth team is often mimicking what they know to be true, because that's the only process they have experienced. So I think it's important to remind coaches that your words matter, that the way in which you teach, you educate, you coach hard, fine. Like I love when coaches say, I coach my guys hard. The follow-up is, okay, how? Like paint a picture for me. What is that? Does that mean you rip their ass and then love them afterwards? That ain't the way. That's an abusive relationship to me. Like what does that actually mean? And I think it's important for coaches. And I love when I talk to head coaches and they do interviews and I ask them, what questions do you ask when you interview a receiver coach? When you're interviewing the offensive line coach? Like, how are you getting to the essence of who they are outside of talking to people they have coached and get into their process? 'Cause I think it's important, man. I've seen this too often in youth sports. It's a disaster to me in terms of the way that I see some coaches communicate. And I only wonder, what is their experience with a coach? And I feel so bad that they all don't get Pete Carroll. They all don't get Dan Lannon. They all don't get Ryan Day. They all don't get Chip Kelly. They all don't get David Shaw. Like they don't get the Lincoln Rileys, the guys I admire and really respect. Because everybody can't. Everybody can't. Like it's so hard to be that 1% that makes it to a Division I roster. Now, even more so than when I played. Like there's 105 guys in a roster. The walk-ons are barely going to exist. So I think it's important for me to know. Okay, process. What are some of the best ways? I'll go to Dan Lanning. He has got these 4 DNA traits that he has referenced since he showed up in Eugene: connection, growth, toughness, and sacrifice. And the best coaches I am around answer the question when I say, hey, what's the thing that matters most around here? Because I ask them all now based on the research that I referenced earlier. When they reference connection and relationships, I light up. And then I go ask an assistant, hey, what's the thing that matters most around here? If they don't say connection or relationships, there's a disconnect. Then I ask a player, hey man, what's the thing that matters most around here? And if they don't say connection or relationships, I know there's a disconnect. When I'm in Eugene, every single person's first principle is connections.
Wow.
And I love that because we are in, to your earlier point, the most transactional phase of college athletics. And you could argue life in general. Leave a job, get a job, leave a post, get a post, leave a team, get paid more money. And I tell athletes all the time, you are no longer just a ranking or a jersey number. You are a transaction. You're the $4 million quarterback. You're the $2 million left tackle. You're the $1 million wide receiver. You're no longer a name. Just deal with it. So how do you compete to make sure that people see your essence? Relationships. Relationships with the coaches, relationships with the media, relationships with the fan. Like it's as old as time. Can you shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye, and actually create space and be present in the convo? Or are you looking over your shoulder? Do you think your stuff doesn't stink? Like, where are you navigating that? And I think it's on the leader, the adult in the room. In this example, Dan Lanning, who's phenomenal at doing that. What does he do? Give you an example. Every Monday, they have a meeting in the season, and they talk about like taking the medicine. Time to go to the doctors. Got to take your medicine. Didn't step with the left foot properly, led to a sack, fit the wrong gap, led to an explosive play. Take the medicine, man. That to me, you could coin that hard coaching, but that is not what I referenced earlier of rip a guy's ass, love him up afterwards. No, like let's teach, let's coach, let's communicate, let's have a relationship, let's have a foundation. And I love that for him because he's got a huge job with a ton of expectations, and it would be easy to make it about X's and O's, make it about execution, make it about only teaching the game. And he's like, I will sacrifice, and he has sacrificed that many times to pour into the relationship, have players at his house, get to know their lives, their interests, what excites them, not based on how fast they are. It isn't just the good players. And that is why Oregon, to me, is one of the healthiest cultures in sport.
Tell me a little bit more about the language piece of it. I think that's so pivotal is because we could have it written on the walls, Yogi. We could have it on the t-shirts. It could be we're process, process, process. But if the words we say and the actions we do don't follow it, there's misalignment. When there's misalignment, there's mistrust. When there's mistrust, things turn to chaos. So I'd be curious on what are some of the, even if it's small and minor, what are some of the language pieces that you hear from Pete, from Ryan Day, from Dan Lanning that really makes your ears perk to, oh, that's a process driven coach.
Yeah. Well, I think the best ones when they come in and get a job, and I love talking to guys when they get a head job because they've wanted it for so long. The first thing they do is not slap up a bunch of phrases on the wall.
Mm.
I remember when Justin Wilcox, who I dramatically admire, Cal is fortunate to have him. He's a star. He's been there for a long time. He's navigated a bunch of things, ups and downs, etc. He walked in year one and I was there his first week and we talked about this. Like, what do you want this program to be? And he was sharing with me his philosophy. And he's like, I don't know if I really want to put anything on the walls first year. Like, I want to learn about this place. And it's the first time I ever heard that. And I was like, that's cool. That's courageous. And what did he want his team to be known as? And he didn't flinch. Smart and tough. Smart and tough. You don't need to wear a t-shirt that says that. They have them now. He's been there 8, 9 years or whatever it's been. But the point is that he allowed his ethos to permeate the walls of the building. And I think in coaching, there is a delicate balance. Like you're teaching guys how to think. Like you are training them. You are giving them a process to navigate. I think it's vital to do that. And especially when you've been somewhere for a long time, like you fall into line around like what this process is for a freshman and a second year player and a transfer player. Like that is so true. But that's the first example that really comes to mind. I think when I think of Ohio State, having just been there this past April, and I tracked their run in the CFP and have known Coach Day for a little while now, their whole thing, it reminds me of what Bill Walsh said back in the day, which is like they've created a true competitive cauldron. Now, part of that is, yes, they have all the resources to have very deep team, that of course, let's not ignore that. But when they're in there, competition is so celebrated. Their practice is one of the few teams I've seen in my career now as a broadcaster that reminded me of anything like we had back in the day at SC. It was just, everything was on. And it wasn't me versus you. It was like us together. Like I know a Jeremiah Smith as the top receiver in America going up against any of these corners, like it's on right now. Like it's on right now, and he knows it's on right now. And we know that that's going to allow us to win in the fall, and I love that. So I think Coach Day has done a marvelous job of getting huge personalities who may have bigger numbers associated with them financially, and huge recruiting rankings, and big expectations externally. And Ohio State is, you know, it's a true blue blood. It is the team that moves the needle in college football. There's a lot of distraction there, and he gets them to focus in on like, hey man, our process, we're just going to go compete. And then you've probably seen it on social media where it's like they just stack brick by brick by brick, and I love that, of like using his words to get to the simplicity of what has always allowed anything quality to be built. It's got to be a foundation. You got to pour into it. You got to mix the concrete, and like those things to me have really stood out, and they've withstood the test of time. And I think the current leaders, at least in collegiate sports, and you could argue all sports, are the ones that adapt to the times that we're in. Social media driven, my brand driven, like embracing that and still reminding everybody that success still, there's not an off ramp to success. Like you still got to go down that same freeway and hit those same elements to find areas of growth and improvement.
Let's talk about Elite 11. So, for those that you aren't familiar, just a quick catch up. Elite 11 is an organization that's been around for quite some time. I remember as a kid watching Elite 11 stuff on ESPN, man. And so 11 best quarterbacks, or the best quarterbacks in the nation, at the high school level, kind of breeding them, getting ready to go to the next level. Feel free to fill in the gaps wherever I need to. My question though is, after seeing somebody, I spent a lot of time in the high school arena speaking to high schools all around the country. So I'm very curious on that age specifically. After working with the guys that we watch now on Sundays, you saw them in high school. What was the golden thread? What was the thing that was like, man, I see this time and time again? Or maybe you show up, Yogi, and you're like, I haven't seen this kid play yet, but I already get this vibe, and I know he's going to be successful based off of this. What do you think that would boil down to?
Yeah, it's a hard question. Joey Roberts and I, we co-wrote this book called Five Star QB, where we dove into that exact question. Tried to give a guidebook to parents and athletes navigating this thing. Because the one truth is that it's not linear. The only thing guaranteed is that it's never going to go as you exactly planned, especially at the quarterback position.
Right.
Numbers back it up. There's 138 five-star quarterbacks in the history of recruiting, which started in 1999, and only one has ever won a Super Bowl. It was
Wow.
Matthew Stafford, team 2, year 13.
Wow.
I think 12 of them have been drafted in the first round.
Hmm.
The numbers just net out. It's not going to always work. So I think there's an acceptance to that. I'll go speak at the Elite 11 in our 27th year this summer. Within the first 2 hours, I will talk to the parents and I will share with them those stats. And I will say with them, like, this process is not going to go as you envision. That is a hard truth. Doesn't mean there's success on the back end. And just to paint a really clean picture, think American Idol for high school quarterbacks. Our staff goes around the country. We come back to LA with the top 20. Of those top 20, we go through a couple days and come out with the top 11. And it is a badge. It is a dream. It is a destination. And we pour in. It's mental skills with Mike Gervais. It's media training, brand training with me. It's quarterback play as good as you're going to find in the entire world. Most importantly, it's a fraternity and it's a community. So is there one common thread that ties the successful ones to each other? I think there is. Outside of this gets you in the door, an elite competitor and an elite passer. They get you in the room and in a specific competition. But what has led to the success of these athletes, whether it's playing or whether it's coaching or whether it's in life? And I just was with Max Brown, five-star quarterback, deemed a pseudo bust. Max is thriving as a broadcaster. I've been a pseudo mentor for him for his adult life. Luke Del Rio, huge name, big quarterback, went to 3 different colleges, finished his career at Florida. Now he's the offensive coordinator for your favorite team, the Paris Musketeers, which is a football team I'm a part of in Europe, as well as work with the running backs at Washington. Huge success story. Christian Hackenberg, 5-star quarterback, went to Penn State, started as a freshman, had to navigate sanctions there, killed it for them there, had an up and down professional career, thriving as a family man, entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. Of course, we've got the Caleb Williams and the number 1 draft picks, the CJ Strouds, the Jaden Daniels. Like, yes, the football side is that. What is the commonality among those men I just referenced? Every one of those guys that found success is a seeker. They're a seeker. What does that mean? They are constantly curious. They are asking questions. They are wondering why. whether that is why am I struggling right now or why do you thrive? How do I navigate the next level? Why do I need a nutritionist? Like they're constantly searching. And I think that is a trait for anyone who's hoping to be successful in any phase of life. Parenting, yes, we figure it out pretty regularly, just in real time. And there's so much data out there. Why wouldn't you read the Anxious Generation book? Why wouldn't you try to tap into a podcast? Mental skills, we all have to deal with our own pseudo monkey minds. Why would we not listen to the things that you say, that Finding Mastery has to say? Like, there's just tools. And I think that that is the word. We boiled it down in the book, like the best are seekers. What are they seeking? I would say they're seeking what matters most: clarity, confidence, and discipline. And that has been the theme the last 3 years at Elite 11. It'll be the theme again this year. And we will try to nudge them down that road to begin to thread their lives together so they can see that bigger picture, that zooming out per se, if they will, because the football world, it requires you to be knee deep. And I think it's on mentors, it's on coaches, on the words we say, the phrases we nudge them with, the lessons we educate them with, to make sure that we're trying to develop the 360-degree human being. Not easy, not always done, but the best ones are the ones that are also doing it for themselves.
Man, you're flying my same flag. It's like you read my book. I wrote a book called Push the Sled, came out last year, about the 7 skills to change your game. And the first skill is to be curious. I have right back here,
How about
stay
that?
curious. It's on all my shirts. I'm a big believer that the best athletes, the best performers in the world, they stay curious, they don't get furious. So when something bad happens, adversity hits, instead of getting furious about it, we get curious. What can I do? And I love the word seeker because it reminds me of the Doc Rivers quote. Average players want to be left alone. Good players want to be coached. Great players want to be the truth. In order to get the truth, you got to seek out the truth. And so the best athletes, they seek out feedback without giving pushback. I'm asking for feedback, and I'm not going to push back when you give it to me. I'm coachable. I would love to know. I think the hard question to answer here, Yogi, is how does a coach, a leader, a manager, a GM, how do we create an environment where our athletes are seekers?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to front load it. Mike would say, what are your first principles? When I've talked to coaches, I often say, and I know this is like a college football centric answer, but when an athlete walks into your facility, insert in employee walks into your building, teammate walks into the organization, what is the first thing you're talking about? Is it how I can get you to the NFL, how much money you're going to make, and why you'll start day one? Or is it, hey, right down the hall, we got 12 rooms, doors are wide open. Those are licensed mental skills coaches. They're going to be there to help you in every element of your life because what you're about to embark upon will not be easy. And let me tell you, we are going to pour into you as well. Like to me, it's front loading. And it's hard in recruiting because you just get them in the door and then I got them. Challenge this era that we live in is that they can get out as quickly as you think you got them in. So I have found that the best GMs, coaches, athletic directors, organizations out there that are in the business of recruiting young athletes are the ones that are really honest and kind of save the money for the last thing. Because they know they're going to get paid anyway. Like if you're a 5-star quarterback, like everybody's paying kind of the same thing. So what environment are you walking into? So I think that is the one thing. And then it's curating experiences where they have to seek, right? You see it in the NFL every year around the combine. You're getting players up on the board. Can they retain the information that you just gave them? Are they asking the questions? Like there's vulnerability is a word that was made famous by Brene Brown. But a huge part of that word is like, am I willing to be wrong? And I say like, am I willing to shoot the jumper from the top of the key to win the game? Like that's like the athletic version. Like, am I willing to miss? Every elite athlete wants the ball in their hands late. Cool, to do that, you got to find answers, bro. Because they're going to give you something different. And to me, that's the conversation. And the true ones, the real ones, to me, the ones that love what they could do for the game versus just what the game can do for them are the ones that are like, heck yeah, give me those answers. I need another one. I need another one. Because I don't want to get duped. I'm not trying to throw a pick six in front of 90,000, 12 million watching on Sunday Night Football. Like, I don't want that. I want the real stuff. So I think it's that. I think it's that same deal as a parent. Like, hey, bro, like, I get it. Video games are cool and you want them. But if I let you play for more than an hour straight, here's a picture of what happens to your brain. It's the truth. Like, So I got to be the bad cop in this situation. I get it. You can be pissed, you can be frustrated, son. Like I get all that, but like we're just not going to do that. Okay, that's the coach, the role of a coach. You know, I did a talk on that 15 years ago. Like, what is the role of a coach? And I always think it's a fun question to ask coaches. What do you think your role is? Managing money, navigating a roster, inspiring your own team? Answer is all of it. You want to be good. It's just what it is. That's why it's a hard job. I'm so happy like GMs are a part of college athletics now, at least college football and college basketball, because there's just more to do. And I think amid all this, what gets lost is like we're all human beings too.
Hmm.
And we're learning along the way. And that's the part of coaching. I love watching Lincoln Riley learn what it's like to be in LA. I love watching Sark learn on his path, Lane Kiffin grow on his path. Like I've watched Dan Lanning openly talks about year one as a head coach versus year three as a head coach. Like that stuff's awesome, man. Like, so long-winded answer, but to do it, you gotta curate it within the walls of your facility.
Yeah, within that podcast series, talking to these coaches, one common phrase that has shown up in all 10 episodes in a little bit different language, but along the same lines, almost verbatim, is in order to create the culture you want, you need to model the behavior you want to see from your team.
Yeah, it's good.
In order to create the culture you want, you need to model the behavior you want to see from your team. And it always starts at the top. And coaches need to understand that it needs to start with you. And so that's why you need to seek out. That's why it's smart to seek out a consultant, seek out people on your life board, like you talked about, to help you be the person you want to be so your team can be who you want them to be. And so when I think about how do you create a curious environment, I think it starts with you as a coach. I think it's you having the humility to ask questions, you asking questions to your staff where your student athletes see that. It's really hard to ask them to be curious and to be, I love your words, seekers, if you're not a seeker. And not only if you're not a seeker, but you're not showing them what it looks like to be a seeker. Because you could stand there and say, I seek all the time. We have staff meetings every Sunday night. We're going through this stuff. It's like, well, do they see what it looks
Yeah.
like for you to be a seeker? I think that's probably the major unlock, that it doesn't happen in one day. It happens day after day, but model it, show it by asking questions and you being curious yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's kind of everything, right? Like, look at you. Like, I would bet if I put a mirror up to you and asked people to describe you, they would say a version of how you describe yourself.
Mhm.
I created this exercise I do at keynotes where I give people a napkin. I call it the Napkin Project.
Okay.
And so imagine you had a napkin in front of you right now, and you answered the following question: how do you believe you impact the world? You write your answer down. Flip the napkin over, hand it to, this works when you're like at a conference with like colleagues, right? Or somebody that they've known for a little while. Hand it to the colleague. They answer the question: how do they believe you impact them? They write their answer. You open up the napkin. How I believe I impact the world, how they say that I impact them. If they don't match up, it's a really cool truth exercise of like, what is my reality?
Interesting.
When I first time I did this exercise, I did it with a production company I work with called Blue Ox Films. Just created an amazing film on Netflix about the Thunderbirds that if you haven't seen it, you need to. It's a top 10 film right now. It is
Oh,
phenomenal. I
sweet.
mean,
Okay.
phenomenal about team and pressure and stakes. Oh my God, you will be obsessed with it, man.
Okay.
But I wrote down how I felt I impacted the world. And their answer of how I impacted them was completely the opposite. I saw myself as a certain type of storyteller. They saw me as a totally different type of storyteller. They were consuming my content every day. They're consuming my conversations once a week. So this isn't like a negative, like, I think I'm cool and they think I suck. Like, that's not it. It's like, this is how I think I'm impacting the world. Like, if it's you, is it I'm trying to reframe high performance, high achievement, and give people nuggets on how to be a better version of themselves? Somebody might write, like, he makes me a better parent. Like, and you're like, oh, I never even think about that lane in my business. Like, it's a really cool exercise. I'd recommend anybody trying it. Just try it at home, at your kitchen table, you know, let alone with your colleagues and your sales force or whatever it might be. But I think there's some truth to that. So what's your example? Let's just go back to Dan Lanning, because he's been the focus of this thing of, he would say connection, growth, toughness, and sacrifice. That's how I believe I impact my world. Connecting to my family, growth mindset, being able to handle hard things, toughness, like it's not easy around here, and sacrifice. Like, yeah, I don't make everything, but that sacrifice is worth it. And I'm very aware and cognizant and conscious of it. I would bet any teammate, his wife, anybody would say like a version of those four things. because they have just been embedded in the day to day. And I think that's a real, like, I should do it with my kids. Like, hey, how do I impact you? And is it landing like that? Talk about intimacy. Like that's the most intimate relationship in our lives, like, anyway, it's just a fun exercise.
How could a coaches listening, how could a coach do that? Would you recommend, hey, do it with your staff, Yogi, or is it
Yeah.
like do it with the athletes? What would it look like for a coach to do the napkin
I do
activity?
both. I do both. I do it with the staff. I do it as the head coach with the positions. I do it with the team. And it'd probably be a different question, right? So the first one, if you do it with staff, is like, how do you think I impact you as a coach? How do I believe I impact you as a coach, right? Those would be the two sides of the napkin. I think with the position group, it would be like, how does the receiver coach, I, I'd ask the receiver coach, how do you think you impact your room? Then I'd ask the players, how does the receiver coach impact you? And then I put them up against it. And then I'd go big picture with the team. How do you believe you impact this team? And then I would pass it to probably somebody on the other side of the ball, right? Who just is aware of you, sees you at workouts, but maybe doesn't talk to you every day, isn't in the same meeting room. And I would say, how does the O lineman impact the defensive back or the safety or the nickel back or the punter? That to me would be the fascinating case study of like, yeah, what is real around here? Coaches do all the time. They call it accountability drafts. It's a really
Okay.
cool exercise, and they will pick, call it in a team of 100. Let's just be basic with math. Say there's 10 captains, and there's a draft, and you're not drafting on ability. You're drafting on accountability, and it's amazing what it does to a culture. It happens every time, but one of the most talented players will always be one of the last guys drafted.
Interesting.
And what it does to that player is amazing. They either go in the tank and they're out because they're fringe anyway, or they flip and they become a team captain. And I think there's something really cool about that. I don't think it's the best thing to do at like the youth sports age
Mhm.
because I think it's a popularity contest
Mhm.
then. But if you have a healthy culture, or if you're jumping into the culture and it's your winter workouts or whatever, like I found that exercise, more people do it than we think. And what you're doing is you're just raising the floor. You're raising the floor for everybody. There's a standard, and more importantly, they're voicing the standard. And that is it. That's the accountability. I mean, coaches can say everything they want. They could say, connection, growth, toughness, sacrifice till they're blue in the face. But if you're not living it to your point and what your book referenced or your podcast series referenced, and if the players aren't receiving and reflecting that, you got no shot. It goes back to what I ask every coach every Friday in a production meeting. Coach, what matters most around here? The ball, toughness, competitiveness, whatever. Offensive coordinator, what matters most around here? They don't say one of those three things. I'm going to predict the game on Saturday different when it's, 2-minute drill, end of the game. I'm just going to predict it because I'm going to say they're not on the same page at the core ethos of this place. And I've asked a version of that question now for 18 years. I'm entering my 19th year as a broadcaster. And I bet I predicted 90% of games when it's
Wow.
tight at the end based on that and that
What
alone.
matters most? Huh. That's cool, man. I'd be curious to know, I think as a consultant, one of the things I'm learning a lot is that there's not typically a right answer or wrong answer. I try to get away from that. As a consultant, what my job is really is just helping you become in alignment and become the version of yourself you want to be. So I get rid of right and wrong, but I'm trying to come up with a different way for me to ask this. But my initial question was when you're asking what's most important to you now, when you're asking that on Friday night before Saturday, is there ever an answer, Yogi, where you get it and you go, huh, a little bit in your mind, you're like, it's a little bit of a red flag, I think. We'll see how it plays out. But in your mind, it's kind of a red flag. Not a wrong answer, but we'll go with the flags instead. Is there anything that kind of raised your eyebrows of like, oh, that's interesting?
No, not really, because the follow up is like, how do you teach? How has your team owned that?
Okay.
Right. So again, clarity, confidence, and then discipline. So if the answer is like accountability here is the thing that matters most. Cool, coach. Like, how have you navigated that to make sure that is a front loaded principle within your team that shows up on Saturday? Well, we do up downs after every penalty or whatever it is. Okay, cool. Coach, you lead the league in penalties. That's the discipline. Like this happens to a team every year too. Like how are you finding the way to teach this because you've done up downs, you've ran the team, you've been nice about like you and if the answer to that part is like, hey, we're just competing, man, like we're doing everything we can, then I'm like, awesome. This team's really about competing to be accountable, competing in every essence. If it's like, man, I don't know, man, we tried everything, then that's I'm like, okay, there's like a this is
Disconnect.
us. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that, especially with youth sports. I don't believe in labels. I think they're BS. You're not a bad kid. That was bad behavior, right? If we want to be very vernacular about it. Like you're like I learned this years ago. We had a wide receiver. We called him Peanut. His name's Trayvon Patterson. He was a kid out of Long Beach Poly. And I think it was Lane. I'll give him the credit on this, Lane Kiffin. Everybody called him Peanut because he's about 5'7", super fast, kind of like could make anybody miss. But on the deep balls or across the middle, he was playing small. And the acknowledgement was like, guys, let's stop calling him Peanut because he's literally playing small. And we stopped and we watched him flourish. So to me, it's like, it's all the follow-ups in that regard. Like I always say to people, like, it doesn't matter to me what you think matters most. I could care less. I just want to be able to articulate it.
Right.
You know, like, so I've heard a variety. I've heard, well, it's what matters most, like late in the game, like we're going to run our slot receiver on motion. We're going to run some sort of slide naked run game. Cool. I love that. That's bread and butter. That's what you go to. Because I love the exo side of that as well as the theoretical side of it. And I think both matter. Like when it's on the line, we're going to run outside zone. We're going to run a slant. We're getting the ball to number one. Like that is just a part of the other answer. So yeah, no, for me, like I think a big part of broadcasting, and I'm old school because I've been trained by 3 Hall of Fame broadcasters. They've been my partners for the majority of my career until last year. It was Ted Robinson, Kevin Calabro, and Steve Physiak, like 3 legit Hall of Famers. I'm so blessed in that regard. They've always reminded me it's about the game. So when I'm calling a game, I'm very rarely lighting up a decision. So like there's no like wrong answers. It's just their choice. And I think what it allows me to do as a performer is it really unlocks my ability to like say what I feel and predict versus criticize what was done with false information. I don't know what was said on the headset. I definitely didn't study as hard as the coaching staff has studied. I don't know anywhere near as much as the coordinators and head coaches and GAs even know. Like I know football, but there's another layer. And I think as a broadcaster, it's important to acknowledge that because you're given one of 2 mics or 3 mics in the entire stadium. You're on TV in front of millions of people. Your job is to be the expert and you already have the job. Like that's the hidden secret. Like you don't have to prove it. You already have the job. They already gave you the headset. And somebody taught me that about 15 years ago calling games. I said, don't try to prove that you have every answer, man. Like you already got the job. Like nobody else is the analyst. And that was really cool for me to hear that. I'm like, yeah, like I don't need to be challenging everything. Like why do I want to be that guy? I don't know. I don't know anything I don't know the reasoning behind this play call unless he told me it in the meeting. So can I give context behind that? Can I tell a story behind it? Can I predict behind it? That to me is the art of TV, at least as a college football analyst.
Yogi, I think it's the art of life, man. I think it's a great metaphor for life, dude. I mean, that's to not be biased, to not jump into things, to not what a great metaphor for life that really is.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we live in like a hot button society, and I get that. And that could grow so many of us to be famous and successful. And there's always an opinion in conversations. I mean, whether it's political or whether it's sports, like you could walk in a room and be like, Kobe or LeBron, like, and boom, it's on. And I go back to where we started with like youth sports. I think it's a generation with the least amount of confidence we've ever had before.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a generation that when it gets hard, they blame someone else or they have horrible self-talk. I've witnessed it. I've experienced this thing. I believe it to be true. Okay, so what do we need to work on? We need to work on how we talk to ourselves. Cool. A huge part of that is humility. I don't have all the answers. Hey, what do you think about what the Browns did, drafting 2 quarterbacks? I don't know. I'm not in their draft room. I know what I think of Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I'm happy to talk about those guys, but why am I going to light up a decision that I wasn't in the room for? Maybe the owner came in and said, you're drafting him. Maybe the coach was like, I don't like Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. Like, I don't know. And I don't really give a damn either. Like, I don't care because why would I pour into something I'm never going to know about? It's an issue I have in sports media and media in general is it's important to frame up our opinions versus say them as fact. And I believe there's a world where if we want to say it as fact because that gets us more engagement. But it's very rarely the truth. It's very rarely the truth. I'm not going to give you the best opinion on NC State. I called one game of Dave Doran back in the day at Northern Illinois in 2011. I don't know the ethos of his program. So if you want to ask me about him, I'm going to tell you that. And then I'll tell you what I do know, what I have gleaned. But I'm not going to pretend to be the expert on that. I'm an expert in college football, and I know the things that allow teams to win. And I know what I will look forward to in their opener this season. That's to me the art of TV. And to your point, maybe the art of conversation of like, this guy's an idiot. I can't believe they did that. Like, I pride myself on being one of the most thoughtful people in college sport. And I hope my wife and kids would say, like, Dad's thoughtful with us too. And I think that's a skill and a muscle that's important. And it's one that's really vital to me because I've seen what hot takes do to people. Coach gets fired, I get it. He's made he made $100 million. And 300 people just got displaced. Two things can be true. And part of those 300 people made 35 grand a year. Like, two things can be true. You don't have to feel bad for them. You don't have to feel bad. Like, I get all that, but I think it's just vital to be thoughtful. And the best leaders are the ones that walk into their big seat when they get that seat and don't lose that.
Yogi, this has been so much fun, man. I could talk to you for so long. I
Whew.
feel like we have so much in common. Love the connection here. We just met, but I feel like I've known you for a long time. How can my listeners best support you as we close down today? The floor is yours.
Well, to me, go to yoption.com, kick your email in, and a couple times a week in the football season, I think you'll get thoughtful content. You'll get conversations that we reference about the process and leaders and their way and how they navigate process. I think you'll get some fun college football content. You get to know me a little bit more. But that's really kind of the unlock to all my stuff. I think the books that I would reference, like Win Forever, is a must read. If you're a coach and a leader, I can't tell you how many coaches have told me that book has impacted them, and I love that for Coach Carroll. And then if you're trying to learn like the psyche of an athlete, check out 5-Star QB. We interviewed over 50 quarterbacks that detail their experience. Being a kid, having a dad, having a parent, navigating loss, not meeting others' expectations. Like, it's a cool book because it's from the true mouth of others that have lived that experience. So it's 600 pages. Read it as you wish, but I'd say those are probably the places that I might recommend people to go to.
Awesome. And if we want to listen to you on TV, where can we do that? How
Yeah,
can we
Big Ten
follow a game that
Network.
you call?
Yeah, Big Ten Network and Fox. Really proud to be there. Really excited for another season. Check us out. I think I'm calling USC's opener, Penn State week 2, and then away the season goes. So once the season starts, it's kind of like lock myself in this little room unless I'm going to the airport. But that's where you can check it out. And hopefully you enjoy the games. And if you don't, that's cool too. Like, let me know. I'm always coachable. Probably won't read it in real time, but at some point we'll get to it.
Awesome. Yogi, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Hey, bro, appreciate you. Congrats on all your success too.